In the last 48 hours, markets just flipped from war panic to opportunity. Trump just paused strikes on Iran, but Iran and Israel is denying everything,
Mhm.
and that's where things are getting dangerous. Oil and gold are pulling back. Bitcoin just swept liquidity and bounced, and the next move in markets could already be started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategic Markets, the place where we give you fundamental and technical analysis all at once. Into our midweek session, we are starting off with Trump ordering a 5-day pause on strikes on Iran, especially the energy sites after very good talks with Iran. And obviously, this gets us excited. This gets uh, us feel that we're probably in a peaceful scenario. And what happened with that? Well, the price of oil as of this Monday just shooted downwards all the way from your 112 down to your 90, 97 and $98 mark. And there was like an immediate 15% price drop over there, which is really interesting for the markets. Fun thing is, we actually already saw this coming last week. If you guys were tuned in on Sunday, we actually said that, hey, on Sunday, last, not in la about, what's it called? 10 days ago, this is where the RSI was on the 8th of March, and the RSI was dropping, but the price was making a higher high, which is known as a RSI divergence. So if the price is going high, but the strength in the market, relative strength is dropping, we were concerned. And near behold, a pullback did happen. Now, Trump did have something to do with that pullback. There is something going on over there, which has us a little bit concerned. Because why are we concerned? Well, Iran denies this talk with Trump completely. They said that no negotiations took place, and basically, Strait of Hormuz will remain closed to countries attacking Iran or in partnership with the US. Any countries that are in support with the US, they are not allowed to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So, with that being said, could Trump just be buying some time for 5 days and trying to make the markets a little bit less scary? Well, that's 100% possible. Why? Because we know that US want to take Karg Island. Now, to many of you who don't know where Karg Island is, it's located on the Strait of Hormuz. It's basically an island where they want to take over the oil facilities that they use, that Iran uses to make most of their money from oil to set up on Strait of Hormuz and send off. And basically, if they get control of this island, they can also set up ground forces via their 2,000 Marines, their F-35s, and the mini aircraft carrier through the USS Tripoli, which we talked about last week. They have basically sent this all the way from the oceans near Japan all the way towards Strait of Hormuz. So if they're going to do this, guys, if they are buying 5 days worth of time to mobilize this unit, and mind you, these are Marines, so they're highly trained, they know what they're doing. They're amphibious, which means they can operate on water and land. They'll
Mhm.
go and try to take that particular land, set up operations over there, set up interceptors, open the Strait of Hormuz, and possibly drop the price of oil even more. But while all that happens, guys, if they can do it successfully, when Trump does declare after these 5 days that, hey, actually, I'm taking over Karg Island and here's what the troops are doing, we could have some negative volatility for the assets we behold. And one of the ones that I behold really close to my heart is Bitcoin. So right now we're in this descending wedge. Now, I personally believe that even though it is a descending flag, it's a bearish chart. For me right now, the MACD is about to cross bullish. On the RSI, we have broken a downtrend. We have broken above it. Now we are bouncing on it and we're going to go higher. If these two things are confirming to me possible bullish action in the future, I'm bullish. But right now, I can see in a way that the market might play out a situation where Trump says, actually, no, we're still planning on taking Carg Island, and we have some massive red liquidity to the downside. Possibly, we're not fortune tellers here, not financial advice, but touching the 63K level again. Why do I think that? Because when I look at Bitcoin's liquidity, well, Bitcoin still has a lot of liquidity over here around the 66 to 64K level. So if Bitcoin wants to do its one last test, then it might come down. And look, if it breaks through the 75, 77K level, I'm the biggest bull here. I want that to happen. Why not? But for now, just be a bit careful as to whatever trades you're thinking of taking on. Wait for the confirmation, then proceed with your trade.
Mm.
Another interesting factor we've discussed consistently is this monthly uptrend on the logarithmic chart. Bitcoin has been moving up ever since 2018 till now, and it's been bouncing off the support line. It did so nearly well again as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if we confirm or test the 63K level again on your VIC. So just be careful and make your decisions strongly. But on some other hopium and some positive news that we all love over here is this particular chart of Bitcoin versus gold. What is Bitcoin versus gold showing us? Well, Bitcoin versus gold in 2017 topped in December, bottomed in the next year, December. 52 weeks, guys, 1 year. Again, it happened over here. Topped in November 2021, uh, dropped by November 2022, then had its upside run. We are coming to a very similar instance where we topped and then we bottom about 63 bars. So we're actually already way past that normal 52 week. We're making our way up. We have a bullish MACD crossover. This is so good. And we are coming back into this from the oversold region to again in this neutral ground in the RSI. This is really good news if you're holding gold against BTC, and if you're thinking which one is stronger, I am going to be a BTC bull over here. I don't know what people are thinking of with gold right now, but not my place to comment. Your decisions to make. But I am heavily bullish against Bitcoin versus gold right now. And on that particular aspect, which we love about crypto and the news is some interesting news came out today where the Clarity Act that we want to go in the market so we can get some clarity on crypto assets. We've actually gotten a lot of clarity on crypto assets in the last 2 to 3 weeks from the SEC and from the CFTC, which is your commodities versus your securities exchange committee. But all those aspects right now, the Clarity Act has said that, hey, if you're going to pass this through, there's going to be zero yield on stable coins, which means that if you own the US dollar on the crypto blockchain, you will not be able to get a yield of about 4% or whatever the relevant interest rate is on that for just holding it. Because if banks don't do it, they sure as they don't want you making that money from crypto. So that didn't go through, and Coinbase dropped about 15% on that particular news. So that was really tough for them. But with that being said, that just happens to be and maybe a little bit of a loss. But look, at the end of the day, this is a bigger win for crypto because it gets a definition into the US law. And with that being said, they're looking for a markup to come in as early as April. So if this can go in and get passed through, well, this will give confidence for people to invest in the crypto markets. And if people invest in the crypto markets, we want altcoins to move up. And right now, the best indicator I look for altcoins to move up is Ethereum versus the Bitcoin chart, because Ethereum is the ultimate altcoin. And when that moves up, it gives confidence for the rest of the altcoins to move up. And right now, Ethereum is making its way up. We are possibly setting up another bullish MACD crossover here and and possibly an RSI breakout happening on Ethereum versus USD. So right now, me and Steve were talking about this throughout the week. We are already crossing past that 2100 level on Ethereum. Now we're going towards the
Mhm.
2200 level. If we really make it through, guys, this is going to be a very beautiful week for crypto because so many of these MACD signals and RSI divergences and RSI breakthroughs are happening, and it possibly could be the start to something great. But coming back to the point on the Clarity Act, I actually have Steve who's going to be covering some amazing information because while coin went down, another index actually went up. And to that, Steve, I will leave it over to you now.
Well, thank you very much, Yash. So a bit of a mixture of conjecture and hopium and technical analysis there, and that was absolutely brilliant. So let's start with Bitcoin to begin with, since you've actually just led on with that so beautifully. And as you can see, we actually are bouncing off some short-term support levels in the moving averages there as well too. So things are actually starting to look a little bit more positive there. And actually the long-term short resistance line there. Is actually really bouncing off quite nicely there, as you can see. So overall there, that 69,000 level is actually really holding up quite nicely. And we're actually starting to go through some of those 4-hour support levels here as well too. So let's see whether or not these actually hold off really, really well in terms of the market reaction will be one of the big things to go with there. We obviously have the long-term support resistance line back here in terms of the 73,000 level to really contend with. So that's obviously going to be one thing to really keep an eye on as with that market reaction as well. So definitely do keep an eye on there. Now, you did allude to a very important index in particular, and that was the bank index. Now, when you're talking about the Clarity Act just a few moments ago, that is really, really fascinating because that really relates to this banking index, as you're actually alluding to. That is actually starting to actually turn upwards as well. As we were talking about previously in other episodes, this has actually been collapsing really, really badly over the last few weeks, actually pretty much the last couple of months. But now we're actually starting to have a bit of an upswing there. So that really tends to actually go in favor of exactly what you were talking about from that fundamental perspective coming through in terms of the technical aspect there as well. And we're also seeing the upswing in terms of Ethereum as well. So that actually goes very, very well in line with your Ethereum ratio there as well. So we're starting to see some bouncing off going on there with the moving averages there too. And obviously that 2101 support level we keep on talking about there too. So we're actually seeing quite a lot of bouncing going along overall there, which is really tending to support cryptos overall. So quite a lot to really, really look at in relation to cryptocurrencies in the general scheme of things. But as we also are very, very fully aware of, Brent crude, USO, all of those kind of things are really the flavor of the day. So let's take a really, really good look at this. We've been really talking about the 4-hour support resistance lines in relation to Brent crude. And there's been that range that we've been mentioning over the last few episodes. We've had a breakdown out of those areas there with all of the Trump discussions that have been going on saying, oh, look, there's a lot of peace happening here, everything's been going on. But interestingly, as you mentioned, Israel and Iran have both said peace. What peace? That overall is really creating a lot of confusion in the markets. But what the most interesting thing was, like we talked about in the last episode, is implied volatility ratio in relation to the USO options, which is the United States oil. Those particular options overall, in terms of the implied volatility, is actually still relatively high. But of most interest, especially yesterday, when we take a look at what actually happened in the markets yesterday with USO, is that actually went up 3.6% in terms of the actual unit price in relation to USO. Whilst it was going up, there was a lot of call option buying in relation to certain strike prices. In terms of the April contracts, a lot of call options were actually being purchased around the 130 strike price. USO is only trading at $114 yesterday. What was of most interest,
Um,
though, was the June contracts. Now, a lot of call options were actually being purchased at 130 and $150. That was
mm,
150. Okay. Now, that is where a lot of open interest is actually present at this point in time. That tends to suggest that a lot of option makers are actually thinking that this war is actually going to be quite prolonged for quite some time. Now, to me, taking a look at those figures there, if a lot of people are actually purchasing contracts out that long and that high in terms of strikes, they are literally saying, you know what? Price of USO is going to be going a lot higher, a lot longer in time. So this particular USO unit price here is actually being thought of. You can see that pre-price right now in terms of the market being opening up shortly at 108. Okay, might come down in the short term, but for the long term, going out a few months, we could be looking at prices between 130 and 150. These could be the prices that are going on there. These guys are smart. They know what's going on in terms of
mm.
where a lot of the money is actually going towards in the future. So really keep an eye on what's going on here. Volatility wise, it hasn't really come down quite a lot at all. Yesterday, okay, it may have come down 6% overall there, but we're still above the short-term moving averages here. And the VIX in itself is still at 25, well above 20, which is where a lot of the institutions are still not buying a large amount of equities overall. The dollar overall has not come down past that form of resistance, which is still now support of 99.2. We're still hanging around at 99.28.
Mm.
So the dollar is still in a high risk area in overall in terms of the relation to everything overall. The bonds are still falling. We may have had some increases, I suppose, compared to say like where it was in terms of the low area there, but we're still testing the September lows. Okay, September lows are 85.48. Okay, it's only closed at 86. We're not really making any new highs, and we're well below the declining short-term moving averages here in terms of the TLT being the bonds. And look at the yields. The yields are still going up. So overall, interest rates are still rising. That's going to be still putting pressure on the overall markets as well. And that can be really, really seen in terms of, say, things like the Dow Jones, which is still trading well below the long-term moving averages as well as the short-term moving averages as well. So you've got that in terms of the Dow. You also have that in relation to the SPY, well below the long-term moving averages and the short-term moving averages. Same thing with the Qs, which is very, very tech heavy overall there, even though you're going to get a bit of a bump up today in terms of the new market day coming through. And the Russell is probably a little bit stronger compared to all of the others, considering the fact that that's bounced off that long-term moving average quite nicely and may actually be starting to go up above the short-term moving average in the short term. So there's a few little dynamics there. You can really see more than anything else that maybe the Russell is a little bit more relative strength compared to the other indices, but at the same time, still fairly weak. Gold, okay, that came down a little bit since we've spoken recently on Sunday. That's where we were in terms of where it all closed on Friday. Came down, tested the 200-day moving average, and now is bouncing back up to the 100-day moving average. So gold is still quite weak overall, but maybe gaining some strength. That's the gold ETF. Looks like it's going to be bouncing up towards the 100-day moving average today. Silver, okay, done the same thing. Basically bounced down towards the 150-day moving average, coming back up to the 100-day moving average, and that's the silver ETF looking like it's doing the same thing as well. And that's pretty much about the summary of everything that we normally look at in the grand scheme of things.
Mm.
So what does that mean for all of our usual kind of summary in terms of our investors and everything? Well, not really much change from the weekend, even though there seems to be a lot more peace talks going on when we think about things overall. But
Imaginary.
yeah, exactly. Imaginary peace, perhaps. But when you take a look at what's been going on with the overall charts, you really don't see much of a difference in the charts, apart from really when we have a look at things in relation to Brent crude. But Brent crude, when you look at the chart, has only just broken down slightly beneath that 4-hour support resistance line. That really is the only major change. The only other major change when we really look at things as well is crypto, which seems to actually be turning upwards in terms of the short-term moving averages. We need to see sustained movement though. There really does seem to be some movement going on, yes, but is there enough to be able to say, okay, yes, we're getting above those resistance levels that are going on in relation to crypto? And in terms of Brent crude, is there enough to be able to say we're getting beneath that level of the 4-hour support level, for instance, and staying beneath it? Are these moves consistent, sustained, and actually staying where they are going in terms of the direction and actually remaining in that particular direction, or are they just going to snap back to where they previously were, and then we're exactly where we were at the end of last week or midway through last week as well too? These snapbacks, as we know, happen quite often, and especially, let's take a look at it. Trump, the old taco trade, okay, always changes his mind, okay. It can happen any step of the way. So, keep an open mind as to what might happen, and then things might turn around the other way there as well. And with that, mate, I'll turn it right back to you.
Awesome, guys. Well, right now, oil has the spotlight and it's giving us a show. Bitcoin is making its is holding its stability and most likely goes for a run that it can hold. But on that topic, we've loved making today's video. Thank you for joining in. If you could drop us a like, it always means a lot, makes us know that, hey, this is being meaningful for you. If you want to drop us a comment as to what we can do better, or something that you like, or something you agree with all this regarding Bitcoin or oil, feel free to give us an opinion. And most of all, if you could give us a subscribe, if you're liking the journey and discussions we're having, that would be great. But in that, we will see you on the next one.
Absolutely. And even if you disagree with what we're saying as well, too, yeah, let us know.
Go for it.